a specific topic each time. And we also thought that we wanted to keep it a relatively smaller group, not because it creates exclusion or exclusivity, but simply because it gives more opportunity to discuss and converse. When we get larger groups and people have the opportunity to share, what we've discovered is a few individuals start to dominate every facet of the conversation, and that limits what people can do. So on that note, at any time, please interject. While someone is either posing a question or providing a response, let's let them do that. If there is an option, you can also identify your ideas or questions in the chat box, and we can either text a reply or verbalize a reply. We don't have answers. We have experiments for what we are individually doing, and sometimes we're happy with what those opportunities are presenting themselves, and sometimes we're not. So as much as we, and maybe myself and Susan may be a resource today, I expect we're probably going to do a lot more parasitism, because there's a lot more impressive minds in the wall of faces that I get to look at right now. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, last little sort of game. I got unanimous approval to record. Thank you. So I started recording. If for some reason you do not want to be heard verbally or seen, then don't hesitate to mute your microphone and turn off your video camera. At that point, you may want just a text, and I will be happy to represent what you are texting, either to what you're responding or to the questions that you're posing. Sound good? Okay.
Yep.
So today we talked about having a conversation about conferences. We're coming to the end of the academic year. Many of us are supporting undergraduate research conferences either directly or in collaboration with other people on our host campuses. And not surprisingly, the vast majority of us are not going to have the opportunity to do that as a face-to-face session, which we are used to. So now we're kind of sort of stuck with maybe a simple dichotomy of, do we do it or not? And if we don't, what sort of opportunities can we provide? And if we are able to do it, what opportunities can we provide? And then in both cases, what are the mechanisms? What are some of the logistic considerations? What are some of the strategies we might have to consider in order to facilitate whatever type of experience we could do for our students? So there's some things that people have thought about, or some things that people are playing with right now.
Hi, Cynthia Keller. I don't think I know anybody. I'm at Delaware Valley University, and I run their student research program. We're pretty small, so we have 28 students in it this semester, which we're going to present at this, our Day of Scholarship in April, which is canceled. And students present with posters and a 10-minute oral. And I think, and a lot of students we didn't come back to campus after spring break, and a lot of students didn't have the data to finish their projects. So moving forward, I decided that 17 of those students were seniors, so they need to graduate. And they need the credits that they were going to get for that for graduation. So I decided that if they don't have enough data, then they can just do a literature search and present data that would have been similar to maybe what they would have gotten. And we're going to have an oral Zoom, because you can have breakout sessions. So I'll divide the students into rooms, and then we'll invite all the faculty and students to come if they want to come. They'll still have to do a poster, and they'll just submit it. So I have a record of them doing the work and completing the course requirements, which is the poster and the oral presentation. Other than that, I don't know, right? I think canceling wasn't fair to our seniors, right? So.
How many people are going to be able to try to do some virtual session by a show of hands? Is there anyone that has been forced to cancel?
Well,
Because a lot of times these considerations are not our choice. Karen?
oh, well, canceled face to face, but they're going to let us do anything we want virtually.
Of course.
Yeah, we're in the same situation.
Yep.
So Cynthia's gave us the example of Zoom, and that's what we're doing right here. And as we know, Zoom does have a lot of functionality in terms of the different ways you can approach the conference. What are some other ways that you can do it? Like Alyssa, do you have an idea or an observation?
Yeah, we're planning to use Blackboard and a video recording system called GoReact. So the students can, well, GoReact is free until June 30th for university licenses and all the students.
Great.
And it seems really easy. The students can just record their video and share their screen or a slide deck, record the video, and then it's integrated into Blackboard. And participants can add comments to their presentations, either through like a text or, text comments. They also have the ability for video and audio comments, which is kind of cool. So we've been testing that out, and the integration into Blackboard was super easy. They can also integrate into Canvas, and I think there are other capabilities too, but so far it seems like it'll be pretty smooth to set up. And we also wanted to organize it by disciplines, and then the videos would all be categorized by discipline.
So the students are going to take videos of their presentations and therefore be able to do this asynchronously?
Yes, they would do, it's not live, but we were kind of hoping to not do something live and keep the posters up for a couple of days, which is one of the main complaints we've had about our in-person conference, is that we only have like 2 hours and it's really rushed. So we're hoping that people might like this a little bit better. And we asked them to record their videos so that we can learn more about their posters.
Is anyone else also thinking about an asynchronous approach? Something that is, please.
So we have done this Zora, stop. We've done this 3 times. This is our third, sorry.
Oh, no,
our third
perfect.
attempt at an online celebration, which is our symposium. And I apologize for anyone who was on the call earlier this week that we talked about some of these things, but we use VoiceThread through Canvas. And so they can post their poster and then talk over it. So it's kind of like they would be in the room presenting. We do limit their presentations to 2 to 3 minutes. A lot of times students have a hard time filling up that 10 minutes, and also people check out in the 10 minutes. So that's one of the challenges. So we have the VoiceThread, the additional capabilities of having it ADA compliant, because it'll actually transpose it as you upload it. So it'll actually have captions at the bottom of the screen for those who need it. We hadn't thought about ADA compliance, and then we found out that that is something we're going to have to make sure that we are following along. So just those types of things that we hadn't thought about. We do have it over 2 days when we do an online version, which is different than our face-to-face, which is a few hours. The reason for a couple days, one, a lot of our or online students are adult workers, so they're doing this at night. And so this was our opportunity to give students like an additional opportunity to come back and participate. All students have to participate in that. They have to comment on someone else's poster, but they also have to respond to the questions that are posed to them.
All right, so that's awesome. And actually, and I apologize, I sort of had a plan of maybe 3 different steps for this afternoon. 1, to kind of look at different approaches that people have. 2, to have a discussion about what could be some of the benefits that arise from these type of experiences. And then 3, how do we ensure that we're not limiting participation unwittingly to individuals or populations that might otherwise be able to participate. So those are some really good examples that will get us into some of these later points about both access as well as benefits from different approaches.
And I'm happy to share our Canvas shell. I've been doing that with folks who've reached out, and we also have a website that we designed to help navigate the training of VoiceThread and all of that. So if anyone wants those, please feel free to reach out.
Do we just jump in and start talking, or am I supposed to raise my hand? Oh,
Nope, go for it.
so one of the things I don't understand, if we share online, I get how to do that with 10 or 20 people, but what about like 1,000? We have a Scholars Day, and I want to say there's maybe 800 presentations normally, so it's been canceled. I can see how to use VoiceThread or anything from my own research lab, where we have about 10 people, but and it could be synchronous, I suppose. How would you do it for a whole campus?
If I can jump in, so we had close to 300 posters for ours, and we're not canceling we canceled the face-to-face. So we're moving to asynchronous, just posters being posted as PDFs on a website, PowerPoints on a website, working with our accessibility team, that we have a host of student workers who they're going to train to bring in these PowerPoints and over a week make sure that they're all accessible, because otherwise we're not allowed to post them online. And we're not going to have feedback. We decided the training process of ensuring that the students actually get good feedback and that they know how to take it and know how to respond to it in 2.5 weeks before our program is just too much for this year. We'll put that in training to do before next year, because that's good to have, whether it's face-to-face or not. But it's just, people are overwhelmed right now just trying to get through their courses. And we decided they have posters, we want them to present. We've told them they could be works in progress, that if their research has been interrupted, to turn it into a reflective poster of what did they learn from the process so far, what's it been like, and what are their plans for the future if they have any, so that they feel like they can still participate even if they don't have data and they don't have any final results. And so we've gotten our team to put together accessible templates that they can use, so the color is right and that are easy to make into accessible PowerPoints. And another team helping us with set up the website with like a news feed, so that there are tags by department, by discipline. You can search by the student or by their research mentor. And then for our oral ones, we had 15 lightning talks scheduled that the students were actually nominated, and we didn't want to take away that special honor. And so we're doing that using a Zoom webinar format, where they're the panelists and they'll present for their 3-minute lightning talks, and everybody else will just listen with no feedback again.
Are there other approaches for large groups that people are doing?
I don't know all the details because I'm not directly involved with the planning, but we've got hundreds of posters and about 80 oral presentations that'll be up. And we're asking our students to, this will be asynchronous, we're asking the students to send them in via, the oral presentations will be through private YouTube videos, which will be behind a firewall. So our campus community will be able to access, but the members of the public won't. And then in terms of comment, we are in my college, we're going to be tapping faculty to each take a handful of presentations and make sure that every student gets at least one piece of feedback that's coming from somebody with some disciplinary background.
So that's really important. I think that I keep thinking about the purpose of presentations and what students will get from it. And if what we're doing is just because we want to do nothing, or if it's really meaningful. And I actually don't know how to make that decision. I really struggle with it.
How are other people thinking about that issue? In terms of, sometimes there's a requirement, I think Cynthia, you open up with that, where to graduate it has to be done. But regardless of whether there's a requirement or not, for a lot of students in a lot of situations, it's an opportunity. How do we create as meaningful an experience as possible, maybe even dependent of the exact structure that we're going to use? We heard some approaches, especially based on an asynchronous model. What are some people thinking about in terms of a synchronous model for a celebration day?
I'm new to this, so I didn't want to cancel. This is our 20th year for having our undergraduate research conference. We had a lot of big plans for it. So I'm hoping to do a whole mix of asynchronous and synchronous and Zoom meetings and putting it on Canvas. I'm going to try to let's make it as broad as possible. I have some faculty who are uncomfortable trying to push their students to finish something up. So this is really helpful to get these ideas of having students perhaps do reflective posters or imagine what they would do if they had more time. I'm trying to do that so that I can help some of the faculty who are a little reluctant to carry forward with this, who've usually had a lot of students present in the past. So I'm here for ideas.
Me too.
So we
We
run
are-
a 2-day event in the middle of April, and it's usually quite a large event with poster presentations, podiums. We have live performances. There are pitches. There's a luncheon. There are all kinds of things going on over the course of these 2 days. And so we very recently we had no choice. We had to cancel the in-person conference. And immediately I thought about our digital scholar platform because I didn't want to lose, again, for a lot of these students, it is their only opportunity to present and to share their work. So like some of the others, we're just trying to come up with multiple ways for our presenters to be part of this or to share their work. So the Scholar Commons is coming along. We basically had to, this weekend, get all the data in order so that could be forwarded to BPress and they could actually create a conference page. So that's going really well. The next step of that is that particular platform luckily does have capability for the presenters to upload things to it. So poster files or slide deck, whatever they might want to share, even full papers. And then I just got off the phone with our social media staff earlier today, and we are going to try now sort of a virtual conference maybe towards the end of April for those that want more of a sort of almost face-to-face kind of situation. So this has all happened in a very short amount of time, at least for us with the conference, and that's just one small part of what we do. But we have taken a similar approach to some of the others where, it's let's see what we can do and kind of offer that out. The other thing that we're trying to be really careful about is that, this is a really bad time and there's a lot of stress and pressure to do things and get things done. And the last thing we want to do is say, no, you got to go in and submit to this, and then you have to take part in this virtual. So we're trying to sort of wrestle with that and try to be as open as we can, that this is an opportunity, it's out there, it's optional. If you are wanting to do something like this, you're more than welcome to do it. And so we're gonna work with the timelines a little bit and try to be as flexible as possible, but we'll start moving on the Canvas piece of this probably, tomorrow, and then, hopefully we can host something by the end of April.
Donna, did you have a question or comment? So just to give you one more model for a large format, our university is probably going to be hosting somewhere between 300 to 500, because as you just described, we're going to be making it optional. We're going to do it synchronously. And what we're going to be doing is multiple concurrent sessions through Zoom, where different faculty and different students are assigned to be audiences. They'll be linked out to a website where other people can come in to participate, but then the students have a variety of formats to which they can present their work. There will be some chaos, but it was sort of our idea to try to get as many people involved as possible. Does anyone else have another model for how they're thinking about hosting an event?
Billy, I'll just say quick that FAU, we're following what she's doing with Canvas for our annual symposium virtually, but we have also decided and have spoken to like some of the honors courses, other classes, that
they have a requirement for a presentation before the end of their semester. So we're thinking of hosting a second symposium for these particular students as a part of their course so that they can do a presentation virtually that way and still satisfy their course requirements. I'll let you know how that works out.
Yeah.
Has anyone tried Flipgrid? We've got a couple of events that we're attempting, not conferences yet, but more open discussions about various topics among students. And at least the folks who've been running that have been excited about the possibility. It's an open access, free to use, as I understand it.
Our e-learning team recommended that we try that. We have very specific constraints on resources. I don't know if y'all are experiencing this. I know someone mentioned it. We're not supposed to tax our faculty because faculty are adjusting to be online, so we don't want to add anything, but also we're not supposed to tax our e-learning team. So they suggested Flipgrid, and we have it on a list for things to explore if we have to do this again, but it was definitely something that they recommended.
Is anyone willing to share an example of what their platform actually looks like? I'm wondering if it'd be helpful. So OSU is, or Oregon State University is moving towards an asynchronous Canvas-based platform. And if it's helpful, I can share what our kind of our thinking is, but we'd really love some support on how to build more functionality into this. Did everyone see this Canvas page?
Yep.
Yep.
So what we're thinking of doing is splitting students' presentations into colleges and having basically building a discussion for every single student. We're thinking we'll get around probably 100 students. So each student, for example, Greg would have his own discussion page where he uploads a video using Kaltura, so the same kind of idea, I think, as VoiceThread, with a transcript of what he said, and then we're requiring that students reply to at least 4 or 5 other presentations about what they've heard. But we're hoping that we're going to get enough participation. We're also concerned about other OSU community members coming in to kind of interact with these students, knowing that everyone's going to be stretched so thin at this time, and trying to figure out how we can kind of build participation. Is anyone else using Canvas?
So Sophie, I am at Northern Kentucky, and I'm happy to share what we're using. I'll send you it in a file. It's
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not there yet, although we're trying to get there. We're just not there yet. I barely have the page.
Okay.
Are people who are using, like, uploading videos into Kaltura or on Canvas or YouTube, what about accessibility for hearing impaired students? Are you requiring students to have them captioned? And or is it because it's optional, you don't have to worry about that?
I think that's one of the benefits of using both Kaltura and VoiceThread is that it automates it, and then students do have to go in and just check, which we ask them to do. But of course, with everything else, sometimes that's gonna, but that's gonna be on them to go back and check the accuracy of the caption.
Thank you.
We're having students upload an actual transcript of everything they said below the video, and so we were thinking that them actually having to write it up would be a good way to ensure that they have everything they want to say.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing for our lightning talks, is having them submit a script.
Got it.
And we're going to make it available for those who want it. We're not just going to distribute it to every listener because we're going to have hundreds of people, but it will be available so that people can register saying they would like a transcript, and we'll send it to them.
So I'm receiving some information as well in terms of different things that people are doing. Be happy to share those afterwards for the rest of the group as sort of other examples in terms of what people are replying to. as long as you give me permission when you send me that information. Susan, can you also talk about what you've been compiling over the past few days and where people can find that?
Sure. So I think this started, I don't know, Billy, like a week. It feels like months ago, but I think it might have been like a week and a half ago. There's a lot of discussion in the CUR community about what to do once a number of campuses started closing. So I put a Google Doc, which is openly available for folks to write down ideas. And there's listings of universities and what they're doing. And I'll pop that into the chat if you're not familiar with it. Also, I had a request today to provide a space for folks to share additional information. So I created a companion to it, which allows for folks to upload folders. So one of the things that's been very interesting to me the last couple of weeks is that we're trying to figure out how to share information and not always sure the best way to do that, but I'm rolling with the Google, I'm on the Google train. So I'll put those up there for you all so you can see them. Additionally, if there are materials that you would like to have me load, or if there are other mechanisms that you feel comfortable with in sharing this information, some people are members of CUR, some folks aren't. And so we want to make sure to make this conversation as accessible as possible. So I'll pop those in the chat, Billy, so folks can see those. And those are kind of open for anyone, just as long as you have the link.
Any other questions about the logistics? Any other ideas at this point about the logistics?
I have a question for those of you who have definitely committed, what you're thinking about timing. So will you try and hold this while classes are still in session? Are you waiting till finals week? Is it happening after the semester's over? Just wondering about timing.
Our lightning talks are happening exactly the same time that they were originally scheduled, because we already had that advertised. So that is in 2.5 weeks, gulp, actually 2 weeks. And the posters will be posted 1 week after they would have been in place, because I know the students don't usually print their posters or finish them until like the day before they were going to present them. So rather than adding extra stress and moving up that deadline, we'll have them due around the same time as the original was going to be, and then use that week to get the website up.
Yeah, we're trying to have everything done also by the time we would have hosted the conference, which is the 14th and 15th of April. So whatever we're doing, the virtual piece or the digital commons, we'll do that by that time. For us, after April 20th, you know, students and everyone else is really thinking about the end of the semester. So this is our best shot in the next couple of weeks coming up here.
So our day of scholarship was on a Thursday, and a lot of faculty said they would like to have that day back for instruction. So we've had to move to either May 5th or May 6th, one of the last days of our classes, and do it at 4:30 in the evening. So it's not the best ideal, but we can't just, I guess, cancel a whole day of classes now if faculty want it back, because we're not going to have the rest of our day of scholarship, right? That's all canceled. So, but again, we only have, I can have 5 breakout rooms with 5 students in each room, right? And, you know, for an hour. So that's not too bad, because we don't have that many students.
We pushed ours back a week, so we're now doing it the last week of April, which is our last week of class, just because of the added technology and our extended spring break and all of this, just to give them a little bit of a cushion.
We're still hosting ours at the same time, which would be next Friday, April 3rd. But we're opening it from Friday, April 3rd through Monday, April 6th to give everybody a chance to go in and see presentations and get the discussions going. People can comment and reply.
So one of the questions that was asked earlier was, how do we ensure that we are creating a valuable experience? If it's a requirement, that's one thing. As a lot of people have already mentioned, we're trying to also make this an optional opportunity unless it's a requirement, because there's a lot of things that faculty and students and others are dealing with, and this should be value added. So what are some things people are doing to try to create the best possible experience, the highest quality possible experience under all the constraints that we are dealing with presently?
Hi, can everyone hear me? I was on a Zoom meeting previously. Okay, so what we're trying to do is, because we're doing some of our symposia via Zoom, we're going to record the student and synchronously. So we're going to record the presentation plus the Q&A and feedback afterwards, and then send that to the students so that they can use it to review. And a lot of times, you know, right after you give a presentation, you get a lot of feedback, but you're so adrenalized that you don't really have time to process everything. And so we think that having this recorded version that they can see afterwards and then can share if they want to with others, it's a value added. You know, it's not the best silver lining we want, but it is something that they wouldn't have had if we had done it the traditional way.
One of the things, can you hear me?
Yes.
One of the things I'm thinking of trying is, and this just is sort of a spontaneous idea, but I wonder if students could sort of practice an elevator talk or a 2-minute talk while they narrate their poster. I think the drawback is there's no interruptions and there's no sort of organic, spontaneous questions. So there's not that give and take. But at least if a student really spends a little bit of time thinking about what their story is and what a listener might like to hear, I think that could be awesome. Potentially to capitalize on that idea, students, say for my own research lab, I might suggest that they create 2-minute talks. One for sort of the novice and one for the person with more physiology background, or physiologists. So that then they get to sort of give the same message, but 2 different levels. I think it would at least be a good exercise. I don't, it certainly is not the same, but that's the only idea I have right now.
Great idea. Being able to communicate beyond your own discipline is one of the key things that all of our students and all of our faculty have to become proficient at. Are there other things that people are doing to try to add value for this experience?
I'm a little bit late. I don't know, is everyone can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I just unmuted my. Okay, so Nicole from Davidson College. So one of the things that we're trying to do with our students who are presenting, because we actually canceled, we have a Vernon Miller Case Symposium where it's an all campus, all the students get to celebrate their research across campus from all different disciplines. And we've unfortunately had to cancel that this year. It's normally done on campus, and they're thinking about different types of virtual opportunities. But I know this sounds silly, but it means a lot for the students. And one thing that we've tried to do is think about, can we have create certificates or just create medallions or something for them, you know, that just gives them something that they can take with them tangibly away from them. Yes, there's the experience. Yes, there's the feedback, but just a recognition of what these students have gone through in this extraordinary time to kind of just sweeten the pot a little bit on top of that. And so I know it seems so simple, but for these kids to have some sort of a certificate for presenting their work, you know, whether that's virtual or in some other format, it's something that they take away and are proud of, right? And so something like that just enriches the experience for them as well. And so it's little, it costs, you know, 10 cents to print a page, but it can be very important for the students.
Great.
We have awards for our face-to-face, and so we're going to be trying to run that as well, is to look at, like, you know, sort of best in whatever. We haven't really decided on our categories. We have a bit of time to, you know, add a little incentive for quality, because it's not just a thing you do, but also to sort of appreciate the work that our students have done.
Other things that people are looking at. So one of the things that we're doing, because part of it is a recognition, this interface that we're working right now is becoming increasingly standard. Yeah, sure, we're all thrown into it in less than a few days, depending on where you are. Maybe you've been in this in 2.5 weeks. Maybe you're now in sort of a half-week range. But my guess is you probably had a grand total of 72 hours. And that's a lot of time. I'm sure you felt very comfortable about that. But this is how we are increasingly interacting. So we're creating a bunch of professional development tutorials, videos, to help students not only learn how to navigate the interface that is whatever program they're using. And there are two formats that we're largely using on campus. Campus Conversations through Canvas and then Zoom. But then we're also using this as a tool to help the students learn how to communicate through this format. Because I can't speak for you. I can definitely speak for myself. The first time I engaged that wall of face, I had no idea how to really process it. And if you think about a student going off for like a graduate school interview with a 3-panel wall face, or an interview for a job with a 5 to 10 panel wall face, that's a really daunting experience. And this ability to possibly do a virtual talk, we hope will not only help them prepare for that, but then these tutorials will hopefully allow them to be a little more professional as they navigate that type of experience. Other things people are thinking about. We've noticed that a lot of students that tend to do pretty poorly, and actually, Sean, I'd be really interested to see what you've discovered, that have a difficult time socializing in a large event with hundreds, low thousands of people. It's intimidating, it's daunting. Seem to be doing better in these virtual type of environments. I'm seeing this definitely with my own teaching. Shauna, do you have any observation? Because you said you've done this for 3 years among your student population. Do you have any sort of suggestions on how we can facilitate the different types of personalities that would be engaging?
We've done it 3 times in that we do it every semester online. We have a large number of online students, and so we felt this was something we needed to do to encapsulate them. And so the same things that I find in my classroom is happening now is what we saw among those who don't participate necessarily in a classroom, who are quite shy. They have this overwhelming personality all of a sudden, which is kind of amazing. But the other thing is, because ours don't always have a video of them attached to it, it's the screen of their poster. Some of them have figured out how to put the picture on the top corner, but for the most part it's sort of anonymous, and so you can leave comments anonymously, well, with your name, but still, like, it's not, oh yeah, I know that person from campus. So that has given some freedom of exchange. We weren't quite sure how students were really gonna interact, if they would at all, but they actually do engage, and they come back and answer questions. We are fortunate enough that we have a committee of faculty who support the event. Traditionally, I'm an office of 1, so there is no way that I could do all of this by myself, and so that committee has pledged they'll go in and engage the students. So a committee of 10, we can split it up so that we're not all watching every presentation, but they can engage the students, and we'll see those students really sort of shine, and they come back in, they ask questions, they respond, and then they're sad kind of when it's over. There's this sort of like, I don't get to go back in and talk anymore.
Are there things that you are concerned about in terms of the student experience? Because some of the times our ability to figure out what we could do to enhance the opportunity is directly embedded within sort of our hesitation or our worries in terms of what the students will be experiencing.
I actually think it's so easy to completely disconnect. This is the first Zoom meeting I've done. So besides email, since our campus shut down, I've really not been in touch with people. I felt 100% disconnected. And it's probably obvious to most of you, but I think that I need to really be proactive and set up things like this, because I think that's going to help this this feeling of connection and then motivation. And I definitely dropped the ball. So that's what this particular meeting is really making me think about. So it's really useful. Thanks for that.
Great. other challenges you're anticipating?
I have a really quick question that I'd like to
Yeah.
hear from some of the other folks here. You know, for those of you who actually have programs during the summer that offer undergraduate research experiences, or programs that require travel that are domestic or international, what are your institutions doing right now? Because we have a lot of students who are uncertain, who are actually not just the students that are in these experiences and have had that experience maybe truncated depending upon the type of work they do, but we also have students who are looking forward to these types of experiences coming up, right? It might be their first summer to engage. And at Davidson, we've canceled all international opportunities over the summer. So I run an IRES program, and I will not be taking students to Germany this summer. But there are a lot of students that are wondering about those domestic experiences. And so I'm just wondering if any of your institutions have had any say in institutionally funded research for students about whether or not that'll occur this summer, either remote or on campus.
So Nicole, I apologize. Can we actually hold off on that a bit for two reasons?
Sure.
One, we're actually going to be hosting another session next Thursday that is exactly this topic. Summer research programs and sort of alternatives of what you could do, but to sort of reflect everyone's, you know, time and the focus. Let's actually save that for maybe the last 10 minutes, just so if there's anything necessary with the conferences, we can make sure we address those. Because
that one's already full.
No, I haven't even opened that one up yet.
Oh, okay.
That actually
Okay, so maybe this one is
announced
full
tomorrow. So,
can we get it? Can we save our seats if we went to the first one?
That's what I was about to say. If you
Can we get priority registration?
Email, you could say, Gunnels, please add me to that list, and you know, we'll just don't tell anyone. But we did talk about, and it's really important to consider this issue of inclusion, access, and equity. And this has proven to be a really big challenge for probably 5 to 10% of my students. Every campus is going to be different, but so far, those issues have all been so shotgun and all so case by case. Do you have any advice or insights about how to be more proactive and how to be sort of more, maybe even more inclusive in the approaches that we could do to ensure the greatest amount of equity and opportunity for the students that want to participate? And then Nicole, I promise we'll come back to your question at the end.
I think this is a super tricky question. In our office, we also have the McNair Scholars Program. So we have students who do not have access to laptops. They don't have access to stable internet. They have requirements to present. So we've been handling that on a case-by-case basis. Now keep in mind, we have 893 students that we're supposed to actively participate with our Student Scholars Day. And what we decided to do is to provide as many low-tech options as possible. So if someone wants to load a PDF, that's fine. Like, we can make that happen. But the larger issue has been communicating this to folks in upper administration that don't necessarily see that limitation. So the focus for our students and the way that we've been talking with them is Student Scholars Day is one of those fabulously sacred things on campus that our faculty love, but it should not be high priority in comparison to classes. So if you think about students, especially our first gen and low income students, have this bandwidth of what they can handle, this event should not be occupy part of that bandwidth. And so we've been really focused on trying to make sure they're doing okay in their classes. And this event is part of it, but at the same time, we're seeing that students are in resource overload. There's just too much for them. There's Zoom, there is Skype. We are a Blackboard campus, so there's Collaborate, there are all these different things. And so we're trying to pare down the options, make them more clear, but also to normalize the fact that not everybody has the same access, whether they're students or whether they're faculty. So we have some faculty that live in rural areas and they just don't have access. So one of the things I've been focused on and my team's been focused on is pulling together resources to really think through how do we make decisions with inclusivity at the center. And I can pull some of those resources together and provide those. And I think we're doing a conversation about that next week, maybe the week after. Everything's running together for me. But that's something to consider as you're doing some of this, is that tending to students who don't have access is incredibly important. There's also the shame element that's coupled with that. So a lot of students aren't going to tell you that they don't have access, and they might not tell you that they're overwhelmed. So providing just space for them to step out, we've noted is incredibly important for us.
Our campus is a lot of first gen folks and a lot of folks who work multiple jobs to try and make ends meet. So with jobs disappearing and or some jobs increasing, we've had a lot of challenges with that. But one of the things that our IT program has done that is amazing is they are sending students computers and hotspots in the mail. They are doing like a lending kind of library because our campus is now shut down. So they're sending them iPads, whatever resources we have that we can send them. Now, certainly not everyone can do that and not everyone has those sort of resources available, but that was something really cool that they started doing this week that I thought was amazing for those students that may have a need who don't want to admit it to a faculty member. Site can do that, right? Like just have a conversation and take care of it for them. So that was a really cool opportunity to find out about.
I think Xfinity is also offering free hotspots in different areas. I'll put in the chat a link about
Comcast.
One of the things that is really very useful to do and something that I explicitly did not do here is to every time you start a conversation, even in these symposiums, start with how people are, where they're at. Let them sort of just have, the 5, 10, 15 minutes to sort of talk through where those experiences are, because it is highly variable, highly different. And then students might be more willing to reach out who might otherwise be embarrassed about where they are. They'll probably do it separately, but they'll feel more opportunity to seek the help that's needed to get something done. Okay, so for maybe the last 10 minutes, can we maybe start with Nicole's question about some of the things people are starting to think about during the summer? As a reminder, I will be making an announcement about a session next Thursday, not to compete with the Student Opportunity Center webinar, so it'll be a slightly different time, but it will be explicitly about summer opportunities and different alternative strategies people are pursuing or ways of supporting students in the summer where so many of our programs are closing down. Be able to attend, great. If you can't get registered and you have my email, just email me. And that's also true for Monday's conversation. If you would like to participate in Monday's conversation and you didn't get in that list, just send me an email. But do some people have some thoughts to Nicole's question?
Do we know what summer holds? That's been the fun part. Like, we don't know what this is going to have, what dumpster fire starts tomorrow is what we sort of joke about. But that's been the biggest problem. Like, we don't know what's coming. And so even to get an answer out of the administration about whether we can, I mean, lots of things have been canceled. Some are study away, some are study abroad. Internships were canceled this morning. All of our summer classes now need to be online. The message seems pretty clear that our summer fellowships will have to be virtual, but no one wants to say that because if we can get into the lab, we want to get into the lab. And so here we sit, and my applications came in yesterday and I can't award anyone because I don't know. And so if we knew what the future holds, that would be nice.
We actually finished our awards already, but we are sort of in limbo as well. One thing we do know is the Research Foundation of SUNY has said that if we can maintain social distancing, then people can work in labs, or some people have field work. Yes. So we're bumping up against, I think, a difficult issue, and that is, some people work in the field. They travel to their field sites independently, so they're not together in a car. If we want someone in the lab, we have to get it okayed by our chair and our dean, and we have to tell them what hours and who's going to be here. And what that means is one student and one faculty member, not more. So, and then all of the workshops and things like that are canceled. So again, I'm really struggling with deciding what's most meaningful and how much are we giving up? Do we want to save those resources for next year? It's really hard.
I think
We're
for
in
us,
the same, oh, sorry.
Nicole, did you want to go?
No, just I wanted to say that, you know, we basically have the same, we haven't made any concrete decisions. And the reason why I asked this is because they would like to make concrete decisions by the end of Easter, right? Because they want students to be able to make other arrangements if they're not going to be able to take part of the opportunities that they've already been awarded. And so we've been trying to collect feedback from students and faculty about what those opportunities might look like if they do need to move remote. But we're also trying to dig and find out what other folks are doing. So I think, you know, some of the things that you mentioned, like the social distancing, having one student in lab, are possibilities for us, but we are, you know, we haven't made those decisions yet. So thanks.
So we've already decided on and awarded our summer grants. We have 6 grants that run concurrently during the summer, and I live in Michigan, so we're not going outside unless we have a special letter that allows us to go outside. And so what we've decided is we're planning for everything to go online. I don't know if the campus is going to open back up. I don't know if labs are going to open back up. My faculty colleagues have some fabulous ideas, but University Council doesn't always agree with them. So there's the liability issue. One thing that kind of sealed the deal for us is where all of our biochemists are and some of our life sciences research. That particular building has been taken offline because the neighboring hospital is using it. So it's making things a little tricky. So what I'm trying to do is to give my faculty colleagues and my students a heads up, encouraging them to think about things going online, providing them resources. But what we have done is we've committed those funds. So I tell the students and I tell the faculty that, you know, let's rework your proposal and see how it can work online, but we've committed those funds to you and committed those funds to the student. Because I'm concerned about folks having employment this summer, especially for a lot of our student scholars. And so I actually swiped Billy's idea about setting up some undergraduate research assistant opportunities to really help faculty as they make that conversion to virtual research. So it's tricky, but I found that having conversations with my AVP, so our head of research is an associate vice provost, having conversations with him, with my colleagues in lab safety, we're figuring it out together, but we're planning on being online because I'm just not convinced that we won't be.
Yeah, just to support that real quickly, we have changed our summer programming to try to focus on student employment. We're in a service-based economy here in Southwest Florida. There's going to be no employment for our students. They're graduating unemployed. Our juniors will be unemployed. And the university is trying to withhold all funding because they're really worried about what's going to happen with a decreased amount of budget in the coming years, because in Florida, we also don't have an income tax, which means we have no buffer from these sort of ebb and flows economically. So we're trying to work with the president, the provost, to free up some funds so that we can pay students to work virtually with faculty so they're not out in a lurch. And I'm sorry, I think there's one more person with last comment.
Oh, I don't know if it should be a last comment, but we have some grant funded summer research opportunities so we have the money and it's specifically for that purpose. So like Susan, we're making them remote opportunities. We're recruiting faculty who are willing, and you know, faculty are also overwhelmed. So we're not using our usual guilt messages and saying that if you're willing and you have labor and you want to help out a student by giving them employment, fill out a project form and we'll give you a student who's local, who's needing the money and who can do the work. So we're making them real flexible. It used to be had to be full-time or half-time, and we're making it anywhere from 20% time up to full-time, so that if a student has other obligations but really wants a little bit of extra,
awesome,
they can do it for fewer hours a week and still get a little bit of money and some experience.
Does anyone have a last thought? Okay, thank you. I mean, again, as I said at the beginning, we had no answers. You are fantastic resources, so we are better prepared with what we're doing locally. If you are interested in these conversations next week, there'll be at least one on Monday for virtual mentoring, on Thursday for summer programming, what we just started here, and then the following week really kind of focused on diversity, inclusion, equity, which are truly going to be trying issues. We've made that one a little bit later because hopefully more people have some time to think through those ideas and those observations we go through. Keep the spirits up. You're doing great work. This is unprecedented, and I'm amazed at how many things people have done. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody stay well.
Yep. Take care, folks.
Bye.